Hey guys, I just got done with an awesome interview with the Michael Perry, the creator of The Drummer's Den. It was a great video, but I want to preface the interview by saying that Michael and I wanted to try to do something different. The first three interviews, I used Skype and I recorded the Skype conversations. And although the content I'm super happy with, the quality was not so great. So Michael and I wanted to record the audio and video on both of our ends, and then I would splice them together to create a better quality product for you guys. But the issue that we ran into was, and I should have known better, we didn't know exactly how long we were going to take as far as talking to each other went, which is a good thing. The conversation went very well and very interesting the whole way through. But our batteries died. And if you know the format of the interview, I start with some questions that pertain to drums or their musical instrument, and then I go to a little bit more of a fun section where I play the role of an employer looking to hire an employee. And then the last section, I try to have as much fun as possible and ask a bunch of speed dating questions. Well, we didn't get to the last section because of our batteries, and I had to cut the interview short, but I wanted to ask you guys with a poll at the very end of the video whether or not you think the interview is fine the way it is, or do you want to see more from Michael and you want me to make like a part A and part B to the interview. So go ahead and vote and let me know what you guys think. Also, if you can, please do me a huge solid, share this video, because I'm sure if you liked it, I'm sure a few of your friends on social media will also like it. Check out my other interviews. I also have some more interviews coming as well, and I'm going to try to do it on a week-to-week basis. So every Wednesday, I'm going to be releasing an interview. I have 3 more booked up, and I'm looking to get more. So if you're also interested in being interviewed, send me an email. You can find my email on my YouTube channel, and hopefully I'll be talking to you soon. So thanks, guys. I hope you enjoy the interview. Hey guys, it's KMKanDrum, and this is another episode of Q&A with KMKanDrum. This is going to be episode number 4. Episode 1, I did a great interview with Earl Bennett. 2, an awesome interview with Jeff Holden. 3, a really good interview with Bill Morehouse. And today, I have the great Michael Perry. Michael Perry is the one that basically made me get into doing all this YouTube stuff and taking it a little bit more seriously than I would have normally thought. I just happened to upload a video, and I don't know if you know your Hato, I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but he found me, suggested I go to all classic drum covers on YouTube, and it was there that I met everybody. But then Michael here started the Drummer's Den, and from there it went from just being part of a community of drummers to being a family. And it really is a family, and I'm so thrilled today to have Michael on this interview. How are you doing, Michael?
Hey, how's it going? Doing well. And awesome. I tell you what, the journey through the Drummer's Den and all classic drum covers, and just Google Plus in itself has been a great thing. I'm really sad that they got rid of Google Plus, because they just didn't realize the relationships that form. I mean, I've had somebody from Brazil come visit me. That wouldn't have happened without Google Plus, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's crazy, yeah.
And so, not only that, but there's so many people I communicate with on the side, and it's just so sad to see that Google Plus has gone away. However, we can still keep it going. We have a WhatsApp app, and we still try to communicate, occasionally. I'm not the biggest fan of that app.
Yeah.
But it is better than nothing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's been a long journey, and learned a lot.
Yeah, there's nothing like that Google Plus. I mean, it had everything. Like now, not everybody's on Facebook for good reason.
Right.
And WhatsApp, it really is a very, it's not as substantial as Google Plus was. So there's been guys that have dropped off, but still the core I think is still there, and it's just an amazing community of just brothers that no matter what, a lot of times we're not even talking about drums in the forums.
Right, right. Well, drums is a big part of a person's life, but to be honest, it's not all encompassing. I mean, for most people. Now, some people that are, professional touring and all this other stuff are going out a lot, it has become a bigger part of their life. But
Yeah.
not so much for me anymore, and not so much for a lot of people. But it's still an important part.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually segues right into the questions. So if you're ready, just let me know and I'll start shooting.
Sure, if you're ready.
Alrighty, so yeah, the first 6 questions, if you guys don't know already, are the easiest ones. They're my drum-related questions, and later on when I interview other musicians, I'll tailor to whatever instrument that they play. But for now, I'm interviewing drummers. Michael Perry is a drummer, so these are 6 drum-related questions. And to point to what you were saying earlier about the commitment and whatnot, drums is a huge commitment in someone's life. In order to even just to be able to play a beat, it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. I want to know how long you've been in this relationship with the drums.
Wow. This, believe it or not, I'm one of those guys that when I was probably 6, 7 years old, I am the kid that took the pots out and beat on them with spoons or whatever I was using. And I remember distinctly my mother saying I was going to be a drummer someday. And, I guess just because of that remark and wanting to please my mother, I've always kept that in my mind. But it was probably wasn't until I was like 15 years old that I started getting a better interest in it, because I met a guy, a good friend of mine named Mitch McDonald, that when I was hanging out with him, we were too poor. By the way, I was brought up in a very poor house. We didn't have drums, and there was no influence for music in my house at all, other than the radio. And when I met him, though, he didn't have a drum set, but he would air drum. I don't know if people really do that anymore, but he would air drum, and I just thought to myself, gosh, he could be really, really good at, because he had everything down. And I thought, when he is able to finally get a drum set, he's going to be great. He's going to be, and we lost touch, and I think it was 27 years later, I found him in Florida, right? I happened to move here from the military, and I found him in Florida, and he actually did get a drum set. He wasn't as famous as I thought he would be, but he's still a great friend and a drummer today. And but I think that was when I was 15. It sparked the interest in me, but I really was so poor. I was just living day to day. I wasn't brought up in a great home, and I just always had that interest, but I just never was able to make it come true. All my money that I was working for was going toward bills.
Yeah.
But I think I was 20 or 21, and that was 1981 when I finally decided to go out and buy a drum set, and I went and bought a orange sparkle Rogers set.
Nice. From
like the 60s. It was a good learning thing, but it wasn't what I wanted. It didn't have the sound I wanted and everything, but it was a good starting point for me. And then I went on to a few years later, a nice set of Hoshino. I don't know if you've ever heard of Hoshino drums.
No, sounds Japanese.
Yeah, they were the precursor of Tama.
Oh, okay.
And they came out for a little while. I'm not sure if they're even out today. And you hardly ever see Hoshino anymore. But they had a great sound with the Thunder set. And so my journey started when I was 21 years old, back in 1981. And that's where it started.
Wow, that's an amazing story. I ask I don't even ask this anymore to drummers because it's kind of impossible to answer. So instead of asking you for a favorite drummer, I'm asking all the guys if you could pick a certain set of hands, a set of feet, someone's brain, and then someone's heart and soul, who would you pick to make the ultimate drummer?
Yeah, I thought about that last night. I was like, who am I going to pick? Because there's so many.
Yeah.
I would think the hands would have to definitely be Buddy Rich. He's an incredible drummer. But interestingly enough about him is he doesn't know how to read music, and he was self-taught.
Huh.
So he
I didn't
had
know
no, yeah, he had no formal lessons as far as I know.
Well, he's got to be an alien because that's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm just going to throw this out here. Playing drums, there's this rhythm that most people, most kids are attracted to drums. I don't know if you realize that. If you put a drum set in a church, all the kids will come up and want to bang on it and stuff. It's like you have this rhythm inside of you. Now, some people are better at it than others,
Yeah.
but there's something instinctual, innate about drum playing that,
Yes.
to be honest with you, if you go back 100 years, there was never all this, what time scale are you in, or, not for the most part. Most drummers were just self-taught, and they did what they did, and they went by feel, and they went by their ear. And today we have so many drummers that it's coming down to a point where, do you know time signatures? Do you know this? Do you know the Tennessee, code, or whatever they call it, the Nashville code of drumming? And it's like, gosh, it's almost like, I think that's great stuff, but I never was able to have the money to take lessons or any of that other stuff when I was younger. And I just think sometimes some of the best drummers out there are the ones that don't have lessons and they play by ear and they just go by feel. There's a lot of drummers out there in this world that are not known. They're sitting in studios like this or basements or they're coming up through the ranks. And, just being touring and stuff is not necessarily a mark of success. To me, a mark of success is just enjoying what you're doing and having fun at it, and taking it somewhat seriously, but not to the point where you stress out or anything like that.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
So Buddy Rich was the hand, the mind. Let me see. Gosh, there's so many. I really can't place it on the mind. But the feet would probably have to be Mike Portnoy. I really like Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater.
Yeah.
And even Mike Mangini.
Yeah.
Is a great player himself.
Just to interrupt, have you seen that the YouTube series where they search for their new drummer?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've seen that like 10 times, and I keep going back and watching it.
Yeah, the way they made it was so great.
Well, it was, but and that showed me a lot. Is you got really good drummers in there that couldn't do some of the stuff they were wanting.
Yeah.
And so that just shows you that no matter how good you are, there's always a place where you can learn more.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly feel like it was almost a setup in a way because Mike Mangini had already done 3 albums with their lead singer.
Yeah, that's right.
And and they knew, and they came from the same Berkeley, and they knew each other. And I don't know. I don't know if it was a complete setup, but I think they were leaning toward him in the beginning anyway. When I go back and watch those films, but yes, that was a great series.
Yeah, I
enjoyed it a lot.
It was really cool. Yeah, I just the mind to me is also a hard one because but the way that I frame it kind of is someone who's real cerebral with their drum parts and whatnot. Like the first person that comes to mind is Neil Peart, just because he's so cerebral, like everything is so structured, and he does it so well. It might not be the best in my opinion, but it's just the one that comes like right off the top of my head.
It's weird that you mentioned him because he was one of my influences as I was growing up. Neil Peart is a very amazing drummer. He looks so serious when he's playing, and he doesn't have that feel or that look of just letting go and everything. It's everything's calculated. And so you're right. I guess, now that I think about it, that would be him. I like drummers like Simon Phillips. He's a very, very creative drummer, very, very good. Um, Phil Collins. I like Phil Collins stuff.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people don't associate Phil Collins with drums too much, but he's a very, very good drummer. And
Yeah, I like I get nowhere near the views that you get, but my highest viewed, or maybe my second highest viewed video is that Tears for Fears song "Woman in Chains," and it wasn't until George St. George pointed it out that Phil Collins plays drums on that song, and it blew me away because I love the part of that song. I just didn't know who was the drummer, and just to know that it was Phil Collins, it's like, oh yeah, you can hear the sound now, and it's just got his feel. He's done so many songs that you don't necessarily wouldn't associate with him. It's
right.
amazing.
And then you got, of course, John Bonham. I mean, how much better in heart and soul is that? He had all those things, and he just let go and just did his thing. And Keith Moon, you could go on and on and on. It's just, I think some people just have a gifting. Some of us are never going to get there, no matter how much we try. It's just a gifting. I mean, think about your uncle, Carlos. I didn't know anything about him. I didn't know he did all that drumming. When I started really looking stuff up about him, I was like, wow, he was really good, and he had the world in front of him. And did you know him personally, or was he just somebody that?
Yeah, no, he married my aunt when I was around, I want to say 10 or 11, and then when I started playing drums, when I was like 12, 13 years old. He was always gone, so like it wasn't like I spent a lot of time with him, but definitely during the holidays they were always home. Even there was a couple of times where James and the band would have Christmas dinner at my uncle's house, and we all flocked. Us as a family flocked to his house for the holidays because the nice big house and whatnot. So yeah, I not formal lessons, but he always gave me pointers. And the main thing that I learned from him is just like watching him and how he goes about his day and how he was a professional in the sense of behavior and how you carry yourself as a musician and whatnot. Very humble, always practiced. Thought he was. What blows my mind is he thought he wasn't good, because he's best friends with guys like Jeff Porcaro and Vinny Caliuta, and when you're in that company, it's easy to see like, oh, those guys are great, and I'm just like, okay, even though like guys in our company would look up to guys like my uncle. So it was really interesting to see how there's always someone that's stronger, faster, better than you, and that perspective. That's kind of what I learned. It's just how to carry yourself and not be like a douchebag, because it's easy to be a douchebag when you're a musician. But yeah, it's like I knew him up until when he died. I think I was 20 years old. So there was a good amount of time that we spent together. And yeah, I knew him very well. Miss him every day.
I mean, I'm sure that he was the leading force behind you becoming a drummer, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's awesome. I've never had that force. That force had to come from an internal source of my own. But I honestly wish that I did have somebody in my life that could have encouraged me more and helped me along the way. But it is what it is, and we all walk a different path, and we all have different experiences, and the journey doesn't end until the journey ends. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. It's
so wherever you're at right now is where you were meant to be.
Exactly.
And so the problem is a lot of people tend to feel a level of success if they go out and do this, or if they accomplish that, and I get it. I understand. When I was growing up, I had these dreams and aspirations of being a famous drummer and all that. And maybe, maybe I could have if I'd have tried a little harder, but life came at me, and I actually put the drums down for many, many years, and just never felt like I was good enough to be out on the road. And maybe I wasn't, maybe I wasn't, but does it really matter?
Yeah.
I mean, whether you make it or not, and in today's world, this right here is where a lot of people accomplish their dreams, because they can't go out on the road.
Yeah.
Or because of family or whatever choices they've made, they decided not to. Going on the road and being part of a band, and I have been, by the way, I have been in bands, and I've been not touring per se, but local gigs with different bands, and it's not all it's cracked up to be, because when the music's flowing, it's great, but then you got 4 or 5 personalities to deal with each other.
Absolutely.
Somebody's late, somebody's got girlfriend problems, and the list goes on. And so it's not all it's cracked up to be. And so people resort, especially in today's society with electronics and YouTube and all that, we resort to creating our own little studios. And I think it's great. I think it's great. There's nothing wrong with it. And especially people, that like myself, that are way too old to go out and pursue something like that anyway. I think it's just a good avenue to, do something you really desire and have fun at it. But the main thing is just to have a lot of fun,
Yep, totally. That's the only reason why I even do it is because, I actually find myself gravitating towards this whole drum thing not just on YouTube, drums in general, but especially drums on YouTube, because it's so much fun. It's fun to do these interviews, for one, come up with a bunch of little games that I've come up with for my channel, and then to do the drum covers, and especially when you do like collaborations and you get to know all of these other people, it really is a lot of fun. There is a lot of work into it. There's a lot of editing. There's a lot of things that don't make the cut, like all the flubs and all the mistakes and whatnot. But in the end, it's all worth it. It's so much fun.
Right? Yeah. I totally agree.
My dumb dog is barking, but
that's okay. I have standard poodles.
Oh, nice. Mine's a Chihuahua.
Chihuahua?
Yeah, Chihuahua wiener dog.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never heard of that.
Yeah, she's more Chihuahua. When her bark comes out, you can totally tell the Chihuahua part. But we love her, but sometimes she's a little bit loud. Okay, so here's a pretty quick, easy question: wood or nylon tip?
Nylon.
Nylon. You're the first nylon. What makes you choose nylon? I'm totally curious.
Well, I use wood on my electronic drums, but when I'm playing at my church on my acoustic set, I definitely like nylon because it's louder. When I hit a cymbal, like if I'm riding a cymbal, it has a louder ping, and it cuts through the music better for me. And I like a brighter sound cymbal anyway, and so to me, nylons make them brighter. It's just a choice.
Yeah,
I like them both, but I typically like nylons better.
Awesome.
I've never had one break. I saw on the other one where people were talking about breaking off and stuff. I never had that happen. I've had sticks break, but I've never had the nylon come flying off.
Huh? Yeah, I haven't used it nylon much, but I did use. There was one time where I was using a nylon tip and it flew off, and once that flies off, you have like almost no brightness to any cymbal like riding stuff. So yeah,
it's just a personal preference. It's
for sure.
Whether I used to take a lot of that stuff, like it's really weird. I used to take what people said and took it personally. In other words, some people like if I choke up too much on the stick, you should hold the stick to the end. Well, and that made me self-conscious of that. Or like me, I'm a heel down bass drum player.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, most people are heel up. Now I can do heel up, and sometimes I do. I can actually do both. But for me, I like to I like to heel down. That's how I taught myself, and that's how I do it. And I think I do pretty well on it. But a lot of people might not find it that appealing. But you could have a multitude of things that people would say that's kind of weird, and why does he do it that way, or why does he do it? That's just the way I do it. And
Hey, if I'm listening to a cover and not actually watching, and I can't tell, I don't care how you do it. It's like it's a different means to the same end, I guess.
right, yeah, and everybody plays differently. I can't think of one person that plays. We're similar, but there's so many people that play differently.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's what I like about it. It's you're unique.
Yeah.
For instance, when Marco was here, he got behind the set and he was like, everything's low. Your hi hat is low, and I'm used to having my hi hat way up here, and I get it, and that's why it's difficult. I don't know if you've met any other drummers from the community at your actual studio,
No.
but when somebody comes to your studio, there's this sort of unspoken thing that you gotta play a cover. I mean, if I was coming to visit you, you would probably want me to play a cover, and
Of
maybe
course.
vice versa.
Yeah.
But when he got here, he realized that my set is just not,
Interesting.
it just didn't flow with and I get it. I have sat behind many drum sets where the cymbals were way out here. I couldn't hardly reach them, and
Yeah.
when I'm playing, I just like to flick my wrists and just go. I don't like to reach for things. I like them to be in close proximity of where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I play my hi hat really low, sort of like Simon Phillips, but a lot of people play them really high, and just different things, and it makes a person not be able to play at their maximum. So I get it. That's fine.
Yeah.
And,
to
everybody's
each
different.
his own. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of to each his own, do you do double pedals or single pedals or both?
Double. I will not play without a double pedal. As a matter of fact, my brothers, who live in California, invited me out for a thing, and they wanted me to play in this band. And I shipped my double pedals out there.
Oh, wow. Crazy.
Well, it's really crazy because I started off as a single bass player, and then I started realizing the differences you could get, and just it really enhances a lot. Now, I don't use it for every song, but I've gotten to the point now where if I don't have that extra pedal there, my foot comes off the hi-hat pedal and it lands on the ground if it's not there, and it's a weird feeling. I'm so used to that pedal being there, just to flip another beat in there every once in a while, and then I'll put my foot back on the hi-hat pedal. But I've got to have the pedal there. I've got to have it. It's just one of those things I've gotten used to.
That's awesome. I love the uniqueness that's coming out in this interview. It's really cool. Okay, how about this one? Do you like a metronome, your internal clock, or maybe a combination of both?
When I heard Earl talk about that, I think every drummer's first thing is yes, metronome.
Mm-hmm.
I've never used a metronome.
Oh,
Never.
really? Huh.
Yeah, never. And maybe some of my earlier ones you can tell. But here's the thing. Metronomes are good, but it's like Earl said. You can actually get too used to the click, the metronome. I can play with a click. I've actually seen where I've heard a click in the background, but I'm going to say this: the drummer is the click.
Mm.
Okay, the drummer in a band is the click. If the drummer is not keeping good time, you need to get another drummer.
So
In my opinion.
what would you say? I'm going to add a six or a 5B question. What would
Okay.
you say to someone like Sting, who would always complain that Stuart Copeland was off time? And he's actually true, because there's another guy on YouTube that went through a couple of Stuart Copeland songs, and he does slow down and speed up by like a couple of beats and whatnot. To me, that's just the feel of the song. But to someone like Sting, he gets annoyed because he's fluctuating. Like, what would you say to something oh, if you were in Sting's band, if you were in the Police or whatnot, well, like, what would you tell him?
Well, as long as he didn't throw off the, if a drummer is really off, and they throw the rest of the band off, and you can tell, believe me, then I would say that the person probably needs to work on their timing a little more. Listen, every drummer speeds up, slows down. I don't care how good you are. There's going to be times you're not perfect, and there's going to be times when you are going to speed up and slow down. It's all part of learning timing. Listen, you are the heartbeat of the band. That heartbeat that's in your chest is boom, boom, boom. It's like an internal metronome, and you have to learn, to play. To play without a metronome or a click. But if you do play with one, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. If some people feel like they need to do that to keep them on time, more power to them, as long as they're doing what they got to do. But personally, to me, I don't like playing with a click.
Yeah.
However, I could, if I was, I've played with a click before, and I get it, but to me, it's just extra noise. I want to feel, when I'm playing drums, I want to feel the drums. I want to feel the music. And when I have to concentrate too much on that click, I don't, it doesn't do me well.
Yeah.
That's just me, though.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great drummers that would disagree with that, and that's fine. But for me, I don't like clicks.
Awesome. Yeah, great answer. I would tend to agree with you. For a good portion of my drumming career, I never used the click either, and I never got really any complaints about it, so it seemed to me that I was doing pretty well. And then there was times where I actually had to play the click, like if someone had, the music recorded already and recorded to a click, then I'd have to go in and actually play to the click. But,
well, I hear the recording studios, if you were to go in, they have click. You have to play with click. Yeah. And so that's cool. I can do it. I can actually do it. I just prefer not to.
Yeah, same here.
It just, when drums become so to a point where, you have to think about what you're doing instead of just doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Drumming should be a more natural, fluid motion, in my opinion.
100%. I agree, yeah.
However, if a person is trying to improve their timing by using a click, there's nothing wrong with that either. But
it's a great tool, yeah.
Absolutely, great tool, but it's not a tool that I like to use.
Awesome.
But maybe I will. Maybe I'll change my mind.
Yeah, that's the best thing, is you can always change your mind.
In this world, you should always strive for trying to improve, trying to better yourself. And if you're not, then why are you doing it?
Exactly, yeah.
Why are you doing it? Just to, I don't know.
Improve, but also have fun.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this might be a Pandora's box question, but why drums?
Well, like I said before, when I was a young kid, I was beating on pots and pans. I don't know why. I remember doing it. There was no musical influence in my family at all. I think it was more to do with just pleasing my mother at that time. But there was also a part of me that when I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of self-confidence. I was the shy little kid that came from a broken home and didn't have a lot of if you'd have known me when I was a kid and teenager and stuff, you'd have thought, oh my God, he's never going to do anything. He's never going to go anywhere. He's just a loser, you know. And I think I did it a lot for just improving my own self-worth and self-confidence, to be honest. I just felt like I needed to feel like I was worth something. And maybe if I did this, I found out that, you know, music is universal. Maybe somebody would like me. Maybe they would feel like I wasn't going to be this big loser. And I mean, I was headed down a bad road. I was looking at jail time probably. I never got caught doing anything, but I was definitely heading down a very bad road.
So, you and I have talked personally,
Yeah.
and as well as along with the other guys in the Drummers Den groups, and I know some of your history and the odds that you were stacked up against. Do you think that the drums helped you steer in a more right direction?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's kind of strange because you're absolutely right. You know, they became a force where I could put the world aside and say, you know what, screw you,
Mm.
and screw what's going on in my life, and screw the people that don't like me.
Did it help
And
with things like confidence and stuff like that as well?
it did. It
Yeah.
did. Now, I was using substances at the time too. But
Many drummers do.
yeah, I think a lot of people do that. Just many people won't admit it, and that's cool. Um, but for me, it was an outlet. It was a way to get out of reality and into my little dream world for a while, and it worked for me.
That's awesome. I mean, I think at some point in many of our lives, we're always struggling with, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing things right? And drums is always a good way to not only uh, instill some confidence in you, but also just to be an escape, like you said, and have fun and like not everything in this world needs to be uh, so rigid and cruel and negative. You've got things like the drums that can kind of offset that.
Listen, the drums is just an instrument. The drums are only what's coming out of you. You know, when you hit the drums and when you play the drums, it's you. It's not the drums, really. The drums are just reacting to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever you play, whatever you do with the drums, is basically a signature of you.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so when you play, just play the best you can. You know, and another thing is there are some drummers that are really good in certain genres of music, and others, like me, I'm not good with speed metal. Even though I play a double bass, I can't do all that fast stuff. You never could. And to be honest with you, I never liked it.
yeah.
Um, you know, I think Earl said it good one time. You know, you've got to really like what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you've got to be. There are some songs that I do well, and some songs that I don't do well, because my heart's not in it. If my heart was in a specific genre of music, I would probably excel a lot. And I think some drummers try music, maybe in just one genre of music, and they're okay with it. But I say you should try different types of music, but you're not always going to excel in every type of music. Like me, I'm not a great fan of country, but I do believe there is an element of country that is really good. And, you know, it's probably harder to drum to some of that music than you think. And the same with any other kind of music, you know. I
Yeah.
say venture out, but generally speaking, there are certain genres of music that you're going to excel at. Not everybody is going to be a superstar. You're not going to be a Keith Moon or John Bonham.
Yeah.
But you can be who you are and enjoy that and like it.
Yeah. I mean, that's all that I ever want to do is, I wanted to be the big rock star and whatnot too. And there comes a time where, if you don't make it the way you see it in your head and in your dreams, there just comes a time where, like you have to like kind of make your peace with it and just say, I just at the very end, I just want to have fun. And throughout that whole time of trying to make it as a musician, I look back and I'm proud of the things that I've done. And at the very least, I had fun the whole way through, and I still have fun. And that's pretty much like the main thing is if you have fun, you won't have any real regrets.
Let me flip the script on you here a little bit. The other day, I put a remark on yours. I can only imagine what it's like to play in the shadow of Carlos. I mean, you got to remember, he might not have felt that way, but others, when you have somebody in your family that's really, really well known, popular, star, or whatever you want to call it, it's hard playing in the shadows of that person. There's a lot of pressure to that. I can only imagine. And so when I left that comment for you, I wanted you to realize that you're just as good as him, if not better in some aspects. Now, you might not feel that way, but when I am observing him, I actually went out and looked at some of his videos and stuff, and then I watched you playing, and I thought, it's got to be very difficult to walk in the shadow of somebody like that. But you really have your own signature, your own way. Now, maybe the doors weren't open the same way they were for him, but it doesn't mean that you aren't just as good as Carlos, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, first of all, thank you so much. That's I don't even know what to say to that. Probably one of the best comments that I've ever heard as far as my drumming goes. But yeah, it's hard and it's not hard. It's hard because I put that pressure upon myself. Nobody else does. Like my parents, my cousin, who Carlos's daughter, an amazing musician in her own right, plays guitar like a guitar player, plays drums like a drummer, like one of those types. Super awesome musician. She actually looks up to me, which is kind of weird as well. So there wasn't any pressure from anyone else to, kind of walk in the shadows or in the footsteps of my uncle. It was more me putting the pressure on myself.
But that's the worst part, because
yeah,
it's the mentality of you feeling that way about yourself. It doesn't have to come from anybody else. If it's from you, that's what's going to affect you.
Yeah.
The most.
Yeah, I mean,
but
go ahead.
But I really feel like Carlos was good in his way, and you're great in yours. I mean, and it's hard not to compare because he's a family member, and he had his time and he did his thing. But you have a different road. I told you that when I first came on. We all have a different path. We all have a different road, and so what he was will go down in history, and what you are will go down in your history.
Yeah, I mean,
and you should be proud of that.
I actually am, because it's a lot of times it's not, you can do as much as you possibly can, and some doors just don't open up. That it might have opened up
20 years ago, but
20 years ago or 20 years ahead, and just the timing was off. So I understand that, and I can look back at all the things that I have done and be appreciative and proud of all of that stuff. And I've said this a couple of times on this series. I have no regrets. I love what I've done, and I love where I am now. And just to be able to talk to you guys and the camaraderie that's within this community really is better than I can't even think about like me now going out on the road, living in a van or on a cruise ship or whatever, and dealing with all these personalities and having to set up and tear down your set every night because nobody else wants to help you, that kind of stuff. Like that's I'm not down for that right now.
Well, here's the thing. You made a decision, to have a family and have children, and that's great. There's nothing, I did too. Generally speaking, if you have thoughts of going out on the road and stuff, that is going to be a hindrance. Not saying that it can't happen, because it does. Musicians are on the road all the time with their families, but that becomes to a point where you put your family almost secondary, and it's not a good place to be. And a lot of families run into problems from people that are on the road. And so you made a decision to get married and have kids and set up a studio and do your thing. And there is nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong. And if something were to open up and maybe somebody could say, hey, there's a local gig going on here, there's a local circuit, would you mind, and I know that you've done records before with, Earl and different people. And so, maybe the opportunity will still arise. You never know. There's so many musicians out there today that the opportunities, it's a different world. It's a different world than it was 20, 30 years ago. The opportunities are different, and life is different.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I'll never say never, but I love that I'm in a position where it's kind of on my terms. Like I can pick and choose.
Absolutely. And, one of the things I'm really big on is always trying to improve.
Yeah.
And I know that's hard for people to take sometimes, because we all like to think that we're doing well, and we are, but there's always room for improvement, even, for everybody.
Absolutely.
I don't care how good you think you are. There's always room for improvement. And so whatever you're doing, just do it your best. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. That's words to live by. I mean, seriously. So that was a great first set of questions. I'm going to go to the next set of questions, which I call job-related questions. So let's do a little role-playing where I'm an employer, and I'm looking to hire somebody, and you're coming in for an interview. If you can, tell me some of your strengths.
Well, I think one of my strengths is have a critical eye. And what I mean by that is constructive criticism is something that is hard for people to take, but I feel somebody has to do it because so many people have been, criticizing my stuff, which actually helped me a lot. People don't realize when somebody criticizes me on something, I don't take it negatively. I actually enjoy it because I start to look at something from a different perspective and say, hey, they noticed something. Maybe there is something. And so I tend to do that to people. 95% of the time or more, I'm very, very positive and say, hey, great job. If I feel like it was a great job. But there's once in a while that I will say something to somebody and say, hey, that was a little weird sounding or something. And I try to be nice about it. But it's just to let them know. Because I think when you have nothing to say but, oh, great job, high five and everything, all the time, I just don't think people don't think they have any room to improve, and I think we all do. I think we all have points in our, I think in this generation where we're building our own studios and everything, you should think about lighting. You should think about your sound quality. You should think about other aspects of what's going on in your studio. If you're making a video, make it your own, but, think about the sound quality that you're doing. Think about, it's not just the drumming anymore. It's now becoming, because people will nitpick you to death on little things. I mean, they will stop the video and just say, hey, what was that I saw? Or what's this? And they notice everything. And so, and some of that stuff can be overlooked, but I think my strength is that I give it to you raw. I give you the truth. And what you do with that is up to you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great quality because I actually tend to lack that. I try to take the video. It's weird. The last interview I did with Bill, we touched upon this as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I said that I take a video at face value, right? And if someone who might not be so great at the drums, but they look like they're having a good time and they look like they're having fun, to me, that's where I'll like hold off on the criticism part, and I'll just type in, oh, that was so great, it was entertaining to watch because it was so fun, it looked like you were having fun. To me, I feel like those types of people are doing it for fun. You know, they're not so concerned about the technicality of the drums and whatnot, and that's where I tend to focus on as well. So, but by saying that, I think we all have areas that we need to improve. That totally makes sense to me because if nobody tells you there's nothing wrong, then you might not think that there's anything wrong or anything to even, not necessarily wrong, but just to work on. I think that's.
I remember when I first met you that you had a snare that was popping really, really loud, I think. Or maybe it was a hi-hat. One or the other. They were really, really loud. And I just felt, you can overlook a lot. I don't do it a lot, but occasionally I will. But I just think people, if they're not aware of it, we all hear things differently. And we're not always aware. That's why a lot of times when you do your sound, you should take it to your car. You should take a copy and run it and see what it sounds like in a stereo system.
Yeah.
Or put on some headsets, some really good quality headsets, and say, hey, maybe my snare is popping way too loud. Maybe you need to move that or turn that down a little bit on your mixer or something. Again, people have different ways they like to hear things. So by me saying, hey, your snare is too loud, that's just for me. If you like it that way, then more power to you. I'm just showing you what popped out at me. And, criticism is very hard to take for people. But you know what? I've had a lot of people come to me on the side and say, hey, this and this and this. And it was like, wow, man, I didn't realize that. And it stung at first, but then it was like, man, they're right. They're right. And if I had not gotten that feedback from somebody, I probably would have never improved. And so, please, if you or anyone else, if I ever put something down there, don't be offended. I'm doing it because I actually like you. If I didn't like you, I would say, great job, see you later. Seriously. And I really want everybody. And you know what? If you ever find anything with mine, please let me know. I am more than willing to change. I'm always looking for opportunities to improve and change.
Yeah, I mean that's a great strength to have. Not only to give, but to get the criticism and take it and do something positive with it. Okay, what are some of your weaknesses?
I don't practice enough. I don't. Usually the only time that I actually practice is when I'm trying to do a song for a video.
Yeah.
I'm not the type.
I think a lot of us are guilty of that, though.
I think one of the reasons was, when I had my acoustic set, it was just too loud. The family would just have to leave the house,
Yeah.
And then it just got to a point. That's the reason why I went to electronic drums. I really like acoustic drums better, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I like the feel. I like the sound. There's just something about acoustic drums that, in my opinion, will never be surpassed by electronic.
Yeah.
Now, and it's funny that the electronic, fields are their whole ambition is to get back to sounding like an acoustic set. So isn't that ironic?
Yeah.
Because of the loudness, though, they're really good. You may not have to deal with that where you're at. Obviously, you have a studio. Looks like it's in the basement. But
I still have to deal with it. I have to schedule in my times, but yeah.
What I would say to you is, if it ever becomes a problem, and most people that have electronic drums is because they noise level. It's not because they chose to. But there's nothing better than a good acoustic set, in my opinion. However, there's a lot of cool things about electronic drums too, and it's good to know how to run a module, and it's good to know how to set up MIDI, and do all those things that you can learn on an electron. And the sound is quite incredible today. They have some really good sound.
And do you have any videos of you setting up your drum set?
I do. I did quite a while ago. It's been a while. It took me years to figure out how to use a VST or like Easy Drummer 2, or that's what I use, Easy Drummer 2. But there's a lot of different VSTs out there that you can use. Steven Slater drums, to get those great sounds. You don't get great sounds from modules. You don't. Most modules sound like crap. And so
Yeah.
everybody runs through the software through a computer, and they pick up through MIDI. They pick up the sounds, and then they mix it from there, and they sound great. They're just incredible. And then you don't have to deal with the noise level. What I would say is, if you ever consider, because of sound, don't automatically just throw away the electronic drums, because there's a lot of good ones out there, and you would be amazed how good they can sound. But there's something about a feel. There's something about acoustics that you just, when you hit something, it runs up through that stick into your body, and that boom.
Yeah.
You hear it with electronic drums, but you don't feel it. There's
Yeah.
something about acoustic drums that they'll never be able to replace. Acoustics are just, no matter where you go, there's a few people that use electronics. Like Neil Peart, he has a set of electronics that he throws around on the backside, but to be honest, he's mainly just acoustic. And you can tell the difference. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so weaknesses, we covered that. Can you give me an example of when you had to exercise leadership in the workplace?
Are we talking about where I'm working?
It could be where you're working. It could be a band experience.
Okay.
Any time that you had to use your leadership skills.
Well, when I was in the military, a lot of people may not know, I'm retired in the military, 23 years in the Air Force. And I worked during the last 5 years, I worked for the commander, and I was basically his senior staff person. And there was and I had to use a lot of leadership. Leadership is not all fun and games. You can ask Rich Raw Drums. He actually is a Chief Master Sergeant from the Air Force.
Oh, wow, I didn't know.
Yeah, and I believe he was a first sergeant. I'm not sure about that, and so he was even higher than me. And he dealt, leadership is not all cake and candy and easy stuff. You have to make some calls that are difficult, and you have to put it much on the line. As far as musical, I never really felt like I was a leader of a band or anything. It was more of a coexistence. I never really felt like I had to use any leadership skills in there. Just never. I mean, the people I were with, we just never really got to that point.
Oh, it's fair enough. What about challenges or conflicts? Have you ever had any with any people? And if so, how did they end up? Were they resolved? Or was there any animosity?
Yeah, things in your life will affect how you play. And I was playing we were playing at some gig one night, back in the 80s, and this guy had trouble with his girlfriend, and he played terrible. I've never seen him play so bad. And during a break, I walked up to him and I said, if I did not take the money out of these other people's pocket, I'd be leaving right now. You are atrocious, and you're doing it because I said, you have got to learn to put that stuff to the side. And you play. You're being paid to play. I don't care what you're going through. You need to put that aside. And he didn't.
Yeah.
And I think I quit the band after that because I was like, nah, if you're gonna play like that, that could happen again. And,
yeah, totally.
And so that was my experience with that.
Huh. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I've never. I don't know if it's gone that far to the point where I had to quit because of someone else's lack of playing or anything. That's a crazy story.
I know, and I never would have thought it would have happened. I was really so shocked and so mad. I wanted to leave because he made us all look bad. And we were never asked back there, obviously. Wow. Just to throw this out there real quick, and I know it's a little off subject, but I have a degree in criminal justice that I got several years ago, and I actually wanted to be a crime scene investigator.
Nice. Can
you believe
super
that?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I wanted to be the guy that was the leader that would go onto a scene and say, all right, tape it up, get this, watch out, don't touch anything, let's go through this systematically, and let's get all the evidence we can get, and I wanted to be that person that was collecting that evidence to find that killer or whatever, and that's what I really wanted to do. And but
Yeah,
but when I got out of the military, I realized I was a little too old for that. And it's funny because when I was going through it, all my professors and everything when I was in college, they never once said, "Oh, you might want to consider your age." They never once said that, and I didn't even think about it. But then when I got out, it was like, "Oh, well, you're kind of too old." And now there's some, because most crime labs and stuff are run by the police in most places, but there are some places that are run by civilians, and but not in my area. So I was just like, well, I would have to move, and it's just something I didn't. My interest outweighed my reality, and even though I never used it, I still have that skill. I still want that. I want to.
Yes.
I want to go out there and investigate. I love murder cases. I love to watch all that stuff on TV. And
Yeah, my wife and I, one of our favorite shows is the First 48.
yeah.
You ever watch that?
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
real. That's real. That's real stuff there. Because you don't
Yeah,
always.
I love that show.
Most of the time, you don't catch the killer.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I
it's
like
crazy.
all that stuff. Anyway, I didn't mean to go off subject like that. I just happened to. You were talking about.
No, that's great. I actually like all the off topic stuff because I do have plans in the future to interview all the people that have interviewed or have scheduled or will in the future about stuff that doesn't have to do with music. I feel like music is only a part of our lives, and there's so much more to people's lives than just some of their hobbies.
Well, I'm like that because that's why I created
Yeah.
the Drummer's Den, and even with this group that we're in now, I've always felt like the drumming community should be a place where people can be friends,
Yeah.
and it's not just all about drumming. It's about would you do this, where your daughter's birthday or whatever. That's important, and to be honest with you, it's probably more important than drumming.
Yeah.
Drumming to me is just it used to be a passion and a desire to get out there and do it, but now it's just fun.
Yeah.
And I like that. And
Yeah,
I like that.
We're in very similar shoes and very similar scenarios. I just can't thank you enough for making that community. And I wish that there was. I wish that Google Plus was still out there so that I can tell everybody to go there and be a part of this awesome community. It's just. I'm still a little bit mad at Google.
I know, I am too. I'm extremely upset because I like the way they had everything arranged, and and for them it just came down to money. I get it,
Yeah.
but they don't realize the relationships that were formed. And another thing that I like to do is genealogy, as you know.
Yes.
And so I'm really. And by the way, just a plug here: if anybody wants me to help them do the genealogy, I'm more than welcome to do my best. It's free. I don't charge anybody anything. I just enjoy people finding their heritage as much as I can. And so I was really, really glad that you were able to trust me to look up your family, and what a great heritage you have. It was amazing.
Yeah, just to I guess I'll do a little mini review on your plug. I went to Michael. He told me that he did the genealogy. I'd always been looking for ways to get into that. Like there's so many things on the web, but you don't know if you can trust them. It's almost like a thing that you want to go to somebody that you know or are referred to or whatnot. And so just to have Michael do those types of things, the genealogy was kind of like something that fell into my lap, and it was like, oh, this is perfect. And I didn't give him any information other than maybe like a couple of names and whatnot. He didn't ask for socials or anything like that.
No,
and he was able
never
to
did.
find so much stuff about my family that I had no idea about. So if anyone is looking, Michael's your guy for sure.
Yeah, I really and that's a passion for me as well. I don't have just drumming. I do multiple things, and one of them is genealogy, and again, it's absolutely free, and I love doing it. I've done it for many people. Uzi Boo Boo Doo Doo. You wouldn't believe. I tell you what, now, you wouldn't believe what's in his past. His heritage is amazing.
Huh?
We're talking
Wow.
about the sons of the American Revolution. Not many
Wow.
people can claim that, and it's the only one, or maybe two, that have gone back to that time, and that's quite an honor. And
Yeah.
even with you, your family was the only one that I had found about about that. And again, genealogy is something, when I do searches, it doesn't bring up criminal records. It doesn't bring up any skeletons in the closet. It basically just has like census records. You can trace back your heritage. A lot of times it'll go through the Civil War and before. Maybe sometimes not. It depends. Depends on where your family came from. But anyway, feel free to reach out to me anytime if you guys want to know a little bit about your family. You never know. It might be interesting. And again, I will never ask for personal information as far as socials or anything like that. I only need certain dates and names.
Yeah. Yeah. I vouch for him. It's an awesome experience just to learn all that stuff. Um, so going forward, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
5 years, I'll still be probably, well, actually, I'll probably be living in Tennessee in a log cabin because that's my next dream. I'm
Nice.
58 going on 59 years old, and I'm going to be retiring probably within 8 years. I work 100% from home, so all I need to work anywhere in the U.S. is a good, strong internet cable. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
signal, not cable. But so if my dreams, I'm actually looking now, but it's one thing to want to move, but it's another thing to move because I've got the house selling here to do. There's a lot
Yeah.
involved, and so my dream 5 years from now is to be sitting somewhere in the mountains in Tennessee. And if it's not a log cabin, maybe it'll be a nice home. I like Victorian homes, so maybe it'll be that. I don't want to do a lot of work on homes, but I do want them nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like character. I like a lot of character in a house.
Mm.
So that's where I plan on being. As far as the studio goes, it probably won't change much, but I'll probably change around the lights. Maybe I'll add some things here and there, and do some more difficult. I'm sort of in the thing of doing more difficult songs and trying to keep it within 95% of the original. For some
Hmm.
reason, I'm on that kick now. I don't know why. I just feel like it's harder to learn, but it's more rewarding when you get a song that's a little bit more difficult down and you do it within 95% of the original. Some people would disagree with that and they might say, well, just do it how you can do it. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I've done it many times. But for me, I just feel like if I'm going to be doing somebody's cover, that I should be doing it out of respect as close to the original as possible, if I'm able to. There are some songs that I'm just not, my mind and my muscle memory and all this, it just doesn't click for me, and I don't have a passion for that song, so I probably won't play it as good. But so in 5 years, that's where I plan to be. Maybe not retired, but close to retiring again. As I retired from the military in 2011, I hope to retire within 5 to 8 years from now again.
Awesome. That's. I love how your beginnings have led you to this point and are leading up to what seems to be a nice, happy retirement. I mean, it's just, it's so amazing to me. It's awesome.
Well, retirement is a funny thing because when I retired from the military, it was all I knew. And if you
Yeah.
knew my background, you would understand a little more that it was everything for me. And when I left, there was a lot of sadness because I felt like it was an ending of my life almost because I didn't know what I was going to do. And here I was, 50 years old, having to go out and find another job. And yes, I had a bachelor degree and I have two associate degrees. I was also going to be a teacher. That's what my associate degrees were in. And I taught while I was in the military at a teaching place. I was an instructor for 3.5 years, teaching hydraulic systems on the KC-135 and the C-130s. And so I thought about doing that for a while, but things just didn't work out. And there was a lot of sadness because I had put so much of myself self-worth into the military. And suddenly I realized that, a pat on the back and a trophy or a plaque or a certificate was great, but at the end of the day, you were just another number. and that just never crossed my mind. I always thought, I'm always going to be a part, and I guess I always will be a part of the military in a sense, but.
All right. So yeah, man, this has been a great interview so far, and I think just because of the way that we did this episode here, Michael and I tried something different. We actually tried to use our cameras here as opposed to the way I was using it before with Skype. We wanted to have the quality a little bit better. But with that, some of our batteries are going down. We're running out of juice. But I think that we got a really, really good interview for you guys. And hopefully, maybe somewhere down the line there'll be a part 2 where we can continue this and finish this interview. But I think right now it's a good time to put it to an end. I really want to thank you, Michael, for coming on. I hope you had a good time.
I did, and thank you for taking the time to interview people. It's very interesting to see aspects of different drummers and just different lives, and it's just really cool. And so thank you for doing that.
Oh yeah, it's my pleasure, man. I mean, it's good to actually hear your voice and see your face and make that personal connection. So to me, it's a pleasure, and it's nothing but fun.
Great, thanks everybody.
Alrighty, I'll take care. I'll see you soon, and yeah, thanks for stopping by, Mike.
Okay.